welcome to Ganny's Story Time. And if you've tuned in before, thank you for coming back. I would like to read to you a story that I like. It's a Valentine's Day story, but it's about kindness and how some people are sad. And this is called Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. Eileen Spinelli is the author, so she wrote this book. And the pictures are by Paul Yalowitz, which means that he is the illustrator and the publisher of this book. It's not the same company that publishes all these books. Is Simon and Schuster Books for young readers. So I did want to go ahead and read this one to you. It is an everyday kindness, not just a Valentine's story. Okay, and I'll show you the pictures right here. And it says, Mr. Hatch was tall and thin, and he did not smile. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, he would leave his brick house, and he would walk 8 blocks to the shoelace factory where he worked. At lunchtime, he would sit alone in the corner, eat his cheese and mustard sandwich, and drink a cup of coffee. Sometimes he would bring a prune for dessert. Mr. Hatch had a routine, and he did this every single day. After work, he would make 2 stops. He'd make one at the newsstand to get the newspaper right here, and at the grocery store to buy fresh turkey wings for his supper. He liked fresh turkey wings every day. After supper, he would read the paper, he took a shower, and he went to bed early. He keeps to himself. That's what everyone said about Mr. Hatch. He just keeps to himself. One Saturday, when Mr. Hatch stepped out to the porch with his dustpan and broom, he got a surprise. A package wrapped up in brown paper. He'd never spoken to the postman before. Thank you, Mr. Gober, he said. Mr. Gober smiled. You're welcome. I always enjoy delivering packages. Mr. Hatch tore the brown paper off, and inside there was a white box, which he opened again to find another box. This box was heart-shaped, all satiny red with a pink bow on top. It was filled with candy. Something fluttered to the porch. It was a little white card. He picked it up and it said, Somebody loves you. Only then did he remember that it was Valentine's Day. So he's excited. Somebody loves you. Here we go. Mr. Hatch wondered and wondered, now who would send this to me? He was still all alone. He had no friends, and yet someone had sent him a valentine. Who? Who could it be? He put the box on the coffee table, and he tried to do some dusting, but every time he left the room, he had to keep peeking to see if that box was still there. He dusted and dusted, and the dust cloth even seemed to whisper, Somebody loves you. Somebody loves you. At last, he flung that dust cloth away and exclaimed, Why, I've got a secret admirer. And then he did something he had never done before. He laughed. He laughed and he danced and he clapped his hands. And then he took a piece of candy from that box and he ate it. He's excited. Somebody was thinking of him and sent him a surprise. We all like surprises, don't we? Mr. Hatch changed his shirt and he found some old aftershave in the bottom drawer. He splashed it on his face. He picked out a yellow tie with blue polka dots and put it on. There's his yellow tie and blue polka dots. And then he went for a walk. Maybe, he thought, I'll meet the person who sent me the candy. Of course, no one had ever seen Mr. Hatch wearing a tie or smelling of aftershave or even smiling. So he got a lot of attention that day. Mrs. Weed tripped over her dog. She was so surprised. Mr. Dunwoody, he nearly fell off his ladder. What's going on with Mr. Hatch? And little Tina Finn spilled all the toys out of her wagon. Mr. Hatch had waved hello to all of them. See, she tripped over her the leashes. She dropped out her toys and he almost fell. They've never seen him happy and excited. On Monday, it was back to work. At lunchtime, Mr. Hatch sat in the middle of the lunchroom, the cafeteria. He spoke to everybody and passed out chocolates from his heart box. On the way home, as usual, he stopped at the newsstand. Mr. Smith handed him the usual newspaper. Well, I think I'll have a pack of mints, too, said Mr. Hatch. Whoa, that wasn't as usual. Mr. Smith was shocked. What, you speaking to me, Mr. Hatch? Indeed I was, said Mr. Hatch. I'd also like a pack of mints. And if you don't mind my saying so, Mr. Smith, you don't look very well today. Mr. Smith is down here in the store. Mr. Smith recovered from his shock to reply, You're right. I don't feel very well. I have a cold. I was supposed to go to the doctor this afternoon, but the stand has been so busy that I haven't had the time. Mr. Hatch smiled. Why, I'd be happy to watch the stand for you while you go. Mr. Smith could hardly believe his ears. You would? Certainly. You just show me what to do, said Mr. Hatch. And so Mr. Hatch ran the newsstand for a whole hour. He wondered if any of those women who stopped by to buy a paper or a magazine or a candy bar was the one who had sent him the secret, mysterious Valentine. Here we go. He's in the butcher store. When Mr. Smith returned, Mr. Hatch made his usual stop at the grocery store. Well, I'm a little tired of turkey wings, he told Mr. Todd. I think I'll have a nice, fresh slice of ham. Mr. Todd weighed the meat and wrapped it. You look worried, said Mr. Hatch. Well, I am, said Mr. Todd. My little girl is late. She hasn't come home from school yet, and I can't leave the store to go look for her till my wife arrives here. Well, goodness, why didn't you say so, said Mr. Hatch. I will go look for her. And so he walked to the school and he found little Melanie Todd by the swings and he brought her home. Thank you, said the grocer. Oh, anytime, said Mr. Hatch. He's out helping everybody now. Remember, he was sad and didn't talk to anybody before? Now look at here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. After supper, Mr. Hatch did not bother to read the newspaper. Instead, he decided to bake brownies. It would be nice to have brownies to share the next day with the people at the chocolate factory. As he baked, the warm chocolate smell of brownies floated through the neighborhood. You know, when somebody's cooking something good, you can smell it in the air. Well, the neighborhood could smell it. Children started gathering around Mr. Hatch's house, sniffing the air. Well, I suppose the factory can wait, said Mr. Hatch as he looked out the window, and he brought out 2 platefuls of those brownies. Now, what are brownies without lemonade, he said, and he stirred up a nice cold pitcher. When the parents came to gather their children, they had some brownies too. It turned out to be a picnic in Mr. Hatch's backyard. He dusted off an old harmonica, and he played songs he remembered from his boyhood. And let me tell you, everyone danced. See this lady right here dancing? Everyone's dancing. Okay, here we go. And so the days and weeks went by. When Mr. Hatch wasn't smiling, and he was laughing. And when he wasn't laughing, he was helping someone. And when he wasn't helping someone, he was having a party in his yard or on his porch. He seemed to have forgotten about finding the person who sent him the Valentine. Then one afternoon, Mr. Gober, the postman, came to his door. His face was very serious. Oh, come in, Mr. Gober, said Mr. Hatch. You look upset. Well, I am upset, he said. I made a mistake some time ago, and my supervisor's very angry with me. Do you, Yes, Mr. Gober, what is it? Well, do you recall the package I delivered to you on Valentine's Day, I think it was? Yes, I believe so, replied Mr. Hatch. beginning to feel a little uneasy. I wonder what it could be. I don't suppose you still have it, as the postman asking Mr. Hatch. Mr. Gober said sadly. Well, as a matter of fact, said Mr. Hatch, I still have the box. The candy's gone, though. Why do you ask? The postman took a deep breath. I'm afraid I delivered it to the wrong address. It was supposed to go to another house. Mr. Hatch recalled tearing off the brown paper. It had never occurred to him to look at the address. He fetched the heart-shaped box and the pink bow, and he gave them to the postman. Well, I do hope your supervisor won't be too angry with you. The postman was headed down the sidewalk when Mr. Hatch called from his porch, Mr. Gober, I forgot something. And he gave the postman that little white card. Looks like there's a tear in Mr. Hatch's eye right there. Alone in his living room, Mr. Hatch sighed. Nobody loved me after all. Then he read the paper, he took his shower, and he went to bed early. The next morning at 6:30 sharp, Mr. Hatch left his house, and he walked 8 blocks to the shoelace factory. At lunchtime, he sat in the corner all by himself. He ate his cheese and mustard sandwich, and he drank a cup of coffee. I'm sitting all alone again. They're out there going, what's up? I mean, why is he not out here talking to us? After work, he stopped at the newsstand for the paper, but he did not speak to Mr. Smith. And when he ordered his turkey wing for Mr. Todd, he did not smile. Nor did he pat little Melanie Todd on the head, or bake brownies, or have picnics or parties, or played his old harmonica anymore. That made Mr. Hatch very sad, to think someone loved him and then it was the wrong house. Okay, now I'm going to show you these pictures because I got to read on this side. Everyone whispered, hey, what's wrong with Mr. Hatch? Mr. Gober the postman. And then Mr. Gober the postman told them, we love Mr. Hatch, insisted Mr. and Mrs. Dunwoody. Do you know what? He gave us flowers for our garden and he helped mend our back fence. Mrs. Weed nodded. I love him too. He saved his bones for my dog Ruffy. Ruffy barked and showed that he loved Mr. Hatch too. Where's Ruffy at? Somewhere down here. Right there. Bones. Flowers. Mr. Smith told everyone how Mr. Hatch had watched his newsstand so he could go to the doctor. And Mr. Todd told everyone how Mr. Hatch had found his little girl. All of the children in the neighborhood remember Mr. Hatch's wonderful brownies and lemonade, and most of all, his laughter. Poor Mr. Hatch, they said, what can we do? Then Mr. Gober announced, I have an idea. Usually when you see a light bulb over someone's head, they got an idea, especially if it's in pictures. You don't really see a light bulb over someone's head. On Saturday morning, Mr. Hatch woke up to a bright and sunny day. He put on his old overalls and he went out to the porch with his dustpan and broom, just like he'd always done. He couldn't believe his eyes. All over the porch were red and white hearts and pink bows. There were boxes of candy on the chairs and yellow streamers flowing from the ceiling. And sticking up out of his mailbox was a shining silver harmonica. The front yard was filled with people, happy, smiling people. They were holding up huge signs with hand-painted letters, and it said, everybody loves Mr. Hatch. Mr. Hatch dabbed a tear with his handkerchief. I do believe, he smiled, someone loves me after all. And then he smiled, and then he laughed, and then he hurried down to be with his friends. And that is the end of that story. I appreciated everybody that's been tuning in. I was surprised. I'm doing this for my grandbabies. But if you're enjoying these stories, you're always welcome to become a subscriber, subscribe to the channel, and you can get notified of when I put up new stories. Thank you for being with me today. And to my 3 babies and those that'll be on their way, sometime soon, God's timing. I love you. I hope you get to enjoy stories with me some more. Goodbye and have a great day.